All right, so for today's video, I'm going to do a reaction to some of the comments you guys made on the videos. There's some pretty good ones. Some are dumb, but we'll see. Let's go through some of the ones that caught my eye. All right, so we'll start with Matthew Castillo. A, smart guys and wise men are two different things. Doubt she'd be able to distinguish the difference when she'd see him. But yeah, smart guys, she's spot on, but I doubt that's who she's talking about because obviously she most likely wouldn't be interested in those type like most women. If she's talking about wise men, he probably just 10 steps ahead and is feeling everyone out and never approaches because he's noticing red flags that most people wouldn't. So yeah, there's a lot of truth in this. I think a lot of girls, they love the idea of having a smart guy, but they don't want him to be smarter than they are, right? This is the control type, of course. Feminine women want a guy that's smarter than they are, right? But a lot of girls, they want that guy that's smart, but naive to their nature, right? Because then they get to have control of him, but he's good with everything else. So you kind of nailed it on the head here. Guys that are smart and understand the game, they're not going to really need to approach the same way. I know from experience, of course, I pretty much never need to approach really. If I do, it's purely for my own entertainment, honestly, just to see what would happen. But generally speaking, I don't need to approach because they always find a way to find me, if I'm being honest, right? I'll walk into a space, they will find a way to be around me. Conversation will organically begin. Right away, I'm downloading all this information in my head and keeping track of everything that's going on and trying to get a picture of who they are as soon as possible. Because let's be honest, right? Everybody gives you their best face when they first meet you, okay? Especially women and any guy that's been through the ringer on some level. They know the women love to sell a particular picture and then later that picture evaporates, right? It's very, very common. So, anyways, this guy's definitely onto something here. X who mid knowledge. How many of us got faked into a false idea of the average woman because we had high caliber mothers and sisters? I know I did. I spent the first 25 years of my life assuming most women were motivated partners, essential nurturers, and loyal to family above all. Boy, did I get burned. Wasted 9 years of my life on a soul-sucking, financial-sucking succubus. Divorced now, 53. It's over for any meaningful relationship with a woman now. So as grim as this is not as uncommon of experience as people love to pretend it is. First of all, my condolences to you, man. That's a really, really bad experience to go through, and I wish you the best in your future. If you do have kids, hopefully you'll find a way to have some sort of decent arrangement with them. This is much more of a common experience than a lot of people want to pretend, of course, as I said. I think the main issue is that girls just have so many options to compare, and that fantasy can't continue forever unless you as a guy do everything perfectly, right? If you autopilot, you're going to get screwed. You can't autopilot your way through dating. You can't let go. You can't get lazy on any level anymore, okay? In the old days, it was possible because the competition wasn't as stiff because it was harder to get in contact. Today, the access is just so easy. Perceptually speaking, the standards are so high, right? And I'm saying perceptually because it's not necessarily real. It's just a perception. It's a fantasy. But how can you convince somebody that their perception isn't reality? This is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, especially with guys that come to me who are trying to learn a few things about women. What I'm finding is a lot of the times I have to dispel one perception after the other. And you tell them and they understand it logically, but they just refuse to internalize it because they're so attached to this fantasy reality that they've been sold, right? It's a lot of work. Maintaining a relationship as a guy, it really comes down to maintaining yourself, right? And a lot of guys fail that and they don't understand because they think that they can just do whatever. You can't anymore, okay? You can't do whatever in the house. You have to understand where to have clear boundaries. You have to understand when to say no. You have to understand when to be distant for a while. You have to know when to be a little unavailable, right? There's all these things you have to balance essentially perfectly. And girls will say, no, it's not true. I don't want distance, all that stuff. Spend a year of your life in the same space as a woman, and you'll see that every single detail of what I'm talking about is exactly the truth, okay? It's not the way we're designed to be. Some people naturally can make it happen. They can, but even that's very, very rare and very, very specific. Okay, so we can't pretend that we're all able to do this. Just like we're not all able to be NBA basketball players, for example. Okay, some people are just predisposed to those things. But if we try to base ourselves on that standard, most people are going to fail because most people aren't designed to be like that. You can try an entire lifetime and you're not going to make it happen. You can't always control what your emotions tell you to do, okay? Now, you can control how you respond to your emotions, sure, but at the same time, even if you become a master at controlling your emotions, consistently overriding for an entire lifetime isn't as comfortable as doing something that's more natural to you, okay? So playing house for 50 years with a woman is not for a lot of guys. A lot of guys try this exercise because they're taught that they should and need to do this. That's a requirement, right? You must do this. You need to be at home and you need to take responsibility. But I know a lot of guys just aren't designed for it. Okay, so it is what it is. However you want to orchestrate this, understand that it's never as simple as people want to make it. And whoever's selling you that fantasy online, secretly they have way more problems than you can ever imagine. Archangel, they're not double standards because men and women are fundamentally different and want different things. When you account for that men with standards and women have similar standards. Yeah, I agree. In this video, the term was double standards, but I totally agree with you. It's a stupid thing. It's a stupid term because saying double standards implies that we're all identically equal in every single way, okay? Life is by default not fair, and to even say anything's a double standard is a very naive perspective, okay? It's a very naive perspective on life because very clearly some people excel at certain things and others just don't excel at those things. We know this. So yes, there is always going to be double standards. There's always going to be certain people that get certain benefits and others that don't, okay? You need to have this information and use it to your advantage instead of complaining about it, making it obvious that it exists, and then, of course, nothing changes and it will never change. Okay, you can only change yourself. You can't change the world for what it is. A lot of people love to externalize their problems instead of looking within, which is why they complain about double standards and how life is so unfair. Meanwhile, if you objectively analyze their life, they're probably benefiting from so many double standards that they just conveniently don't talk about. They neglect those because they benefit from them. But the ones they don't benefit from, they're very quick to point out how it's unfair. It's manipulative. It's sort of like blind, arrogant ignorance, right? You're purposefully being ignorant so you can get the benefit of both worlds. For example, men don't want women with a high body count, but women are just as turned off, and I'd argue much more so in modern times, with being with a virgin than men are turned off by being the high body count woman. This is absolutely the fact. It's very, very true. Girls won't say that, of course, because they play the social game because they don't want to look like bad people. But yes, girls are repulsed by virgins. Make that make sense. So you're saying you want a guy of morality, but you're repulsed by a virgin. How does that make sense? You can't have it both ways, but that's the problem. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And this is what we're seeing, okay, especially from women. Guys engage in this a little bit, but guys don't get the luxury of doing it because they're held to a standard. So women mainly are responsible for this sort of behavior, I guess we'll call it. Right? They want to have their cake and eat it too. I want the perfect man. The perfect balance of he's sensitive, but he's strong. He's weak, but only for me. And he's a virgin, but he's very good at sex. It's like none of it makes any sense. And the fact that we're constantly perpetuating this and enabling women to have this fantasy while disabling the male fantasy doesn't make any sense. It really... So this guy is pretty much on point. Yet when women do this and talk about this preference, they are sympathized with while men are demonized for not wanting promiscuous women. That's the real double that's the real double standard. I mean, yeah. Pretty much exactly what I said. So it's definitely a good observation. Robert Lloyd. So after working 8, 9, 10 hours a day, answering stupid emails, working on pointless projects, boring meetings, bosses, coworkers, office drama, office BS, HR issues, etc. A guy comes home to be tested every 10 minutes by a woman who's lounging around in lingerie and reading a book on testing men. If a man tested a woman every 10 minutes, he's considered toxic, controlling, needs to be dumped. Sounds fair. So, Robert, I hate to tell you this, man, but this right here is a bit of a cope comment. I understand your point, but it's never going to change, my friend. I'm just being honest with you. It's never going to change. So, in my opinion, I think it's better to either aim down and level. So go for someone that clearly looks up to you as the best they can get, or accept the reality that is. Okay, women are going to be blinded by emotions at times, and in those moments, they are not going to care about anything you did for them. Okay, or consistently do. They're just not going to. This is sort of one of those things that you have to develop. Having strong boundaries. It's not about fair. It's not about fair. So you have to decide how you're going to work around this. I also want to point out that if you're working in an office, chances are you don't have enough money to support a woman who's sitting at home in lingerie reading about whatever, reading about testing men. Okay, that doesn't exist anymore. You can't be an office worker today, working 8, 9, 10 hours and have a stay-at-home wife. Maybe if you're a trust fund guy and your parents left you a bunch, maybe you can pull this off. But if you're starting from zero, man, there's no way you're going to be an office guy having a woman at home doing nothing while you're supporting everything, no problems. So you're painting a bit of a fantasy here that doesn't practically exist. So accept the reality, my friend. Don't fight it so much. It may seem unfair, but there's a lot of aspects of life that are incredibly unfair. There's a lot of aspects of life that are pretty good too. So look at it holistically. Don't focus on the part that feels unfair because you're not getting the benefit. Okay? Don't be like the very thing we're complaining about in women. Taking all the benefits and the parts that suit you while pointing out the things that don't suit you. Okay? In the old days, we would have been sent out as fodder to war. If we weren't valuable in the castle, right, we would have been sent out as fodder. It doesn't change the reality, my friend. Okay? So today, you're not going to be sent out as fodder the same way. You have an opportunity at the very least. So take advantage of that and look at it for what it is. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you want to see more of my private content, don't forget to check the link in the description below.